In the good old summertime, people flock to Delaware's beaches from all over the United States, but they come mainly from the region between Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. All types of ocean resort activity and recreation are available on the Delaware seaside. Surf bathing, sunbathing, strolling on the boardwalk, besides all the refinements and facilities of city life. These pleasure boats remind us that some sports, like sailing and fishing, can be enjoyed here during all seasons of the year. One of the most popular forms of recreation is camping on the public lands. This is Keybox Road, the major camping area in the state, and its popularity is increasing every year. Soon it must be enlarged again. But the same ocean, which is so beautiful and so attractive to vacationers, is playing havoc with the beaches. Every white-capped wave which splashes on the beach carries away some sand. Every salty roller which invigorates a happy bather also undermines the piers and jetties and corrodes the iron bolts and steel sheet piling. And when a real storm strikes the coast, sand is moved by the thousands of tons. The wind picks up the grains of sand and flings them in huge clouds until whole dunes have been blown away. The waves splash far up the beach and carry off acres of sand to the ocean bottom. After the storm, the residents come out to clear up the debris and repair their cottages. Everybody wonders how many more storms it will take to give this land back to the seagulls. Others are just thankful the storm stopped when it did, knowing that nothing lasts forever, except the ocean. Down on the beach, the protective groins were left high and dry, and without the likelihood of ever performing their function again. But men all over the world have had this problem when they lived by the sea. And though the storms may wash away the beaches and destroy the jetties and groins, and damage the boardwalks and cottages, it is possible for man to keep his land if he will fight for it. This eroded beach with its muddy shore and its battered groins can be restored to its former beauty and usefulness. Kitts Hummock is one of the resort communities which suffered considerable damage from the storm of 1955. The beach was badly eroded, and many of the cottages were undermined and threatened with total destruction. In an effort to protect the cottages and prevent flooding of inland areas, a dike was built with mud taken from the bay bottom. A dike like this is not expected to last very long because it needs the strength of a wider beach to reduce the effect of the waves. Planting grass on the dike helps to keep it in place until the beach can be repaired. But building a dike with local mud made the water too deep for safe bathing. Slaughter Beach is another community which lost a large portion of its beach. Sand was washed away from the old groins, which were built many years ago, leaving them completely exposed and allowing the large stones to settle too deep to be an effective protection against the waves. In order to rebuild this beach, it was necessary to repair the existing groins and completely replace the sand. The highway department used fill brought from nearby borrow pits. The tidal waters dissolved and washed away the silt and clay, allowing the sand to settle into place naturally. This method of beach renewal is not satisfactory for all places. Borrow pits should be close. A good road is required, and many trucks are needed to place the sand during low tide. After the fill is dumped, it is bulldozed out to the water's edge. Then it must be graded properly or it will be washed away. Grading a beach is just as important as grading a road. After repairing the groins and placing the sand, the storm is but a memory. Here is the new beach. It is quite a contrast to this storm-washed site just after the damage was done. Notice how the groins are high and dry and how low and narrow the beach. Now, the same area presents this appearance, a fine, wide, protective beach. These damaged cottages show part of what happened at Broadkill Beach. The beach was scooped away, leaving a very narrow strip of sand that was covered with debris from the storm. Looking south, we see more of the ruined beach, with its exposed and now useless groins. To repair this damage, a dredge was used. It is seen here with a crane. Dredge fill is placed much cheaper and faster than by other methods. The dredge pumps sand directly from the bay bottom through a pipe to the low areas on shore. When one low area is filled, the sand is switched to another pipe while the first one is moved. Only stormy weather will slow down operations. Here are scenes of the finished beach. Only the tips of the old groins are visible now, and wide, well-graded beach protects the shore and is enjoyed by vacationers. This beach was rebuilt at a cost of less than 80 cents a cubic yard. Its value as a protection against floods and as a public resort can only be estimated. Repairs such as these can only be considered as an investment, not an expense. In the last 100 years, part of Delaware's coastline has been cut back 400 feet. At this rate, large parts of Kent and Sussex counties would soon be underwater. Conservation practices such as rebuilding beaches and dunes and planting grass upon them will do much to preserve Delaware's beaches and coastline for future generations to enjoy. If the storm had lasted a few more hours, these cottages at Lewes would have gone out to sea. To get immediate protection from the high tides which followed the storm, the Highway Department used bulldozers to build an emergency dike in front of the cottages. The groins, built many years ago, had much to do with the beach losses. Sand was held in place, but the groins did not affect a large enough area. New engineering knowledge has resulted in this system of 3 new groins, which should overcome the problem. Groins are cribs built of heavy timbers and filled with large rocks. They break the force of the waves and cause the sand to fall to the bottom instead of being washed away. Here again, the dredge was used in Rehoboth Inlet. These pipes are 27 inches in diameter, and the dredge can pump 45,000 cubic yards of sand per day through them. This is the same as saying that the dredge can place as much sand as 15,000 6-ton trucks. But even if there were so many trucks available, there are not enough heavy-duty roads in this area. Another advantage of dredging is that sand can be taken far enough from shore that it does not make the bathing area dangerous. The dredge can be moved about very easily under its own power. But the floating pipeline is relatively fragile and can be broken by storms. The pipe, resting on pontoons, is moved by means of the floating crane and a tugboat. The dredge works on continuous shifts 24 hours a day until the job is done. Aboard the dredge in Rehoboth Inlet, we see the pipe being laid on shore in preparation for filling low areas near Lewes. These are the large valves which control the flow of sand through the pipes. A large quantity of water is pumped through the pipes with the sand. This water makes placing the fill where it is wanted a very easy task. Very little grading is required after the sand has been washed into place, but in every case, it is necessary that the beach be graded properly. This rebuilt beach has little resemblance to the storm-battered coast we saw here earlier. The groins are now completely covered except for the shore end tips. Do you recognize this place? It is the same place where the waves had undermined the cottages and a fence was dangling over the edge. This is a graphic example of what can be done at reasonable cost to protect the tremendous investment in our coastal summer resorts. Then, with annual replacement of sand losses, the beaches should last for generations. Rehoboth is the largest resort in Delaware, and its beach erosion problem is one of the most difficult because most of the beach loss is underwater and is not visible to the eye. This does not affect the use of the beach, and it is not dangerous to the bathers, but a severe storm blowing in the right direction could erode this sloping and unstable beach all the way to the boardwalk in a few hours. A dredge cannot work in the open ocean at Rehoboth because the rough water would soon break the pipeline which is laid on pontoons. And it would not be feasible to dredge in Rehoboth Bay and lay the pipelines all the way across the highway and up the main street to the beach. A study of the waves and currents revealed that beach fill placed in the vicinity of Indian River Inlet would feed sand to Rehoboth Beach. Just north of Indian River Inlet, the storm broke through the last row of barrier dunes and damaged large portions of the highway. Another storm in the same season could have broken through to Indian River Bay, so artificial dunes were built immediately. Later, they were planted with grass. In order to repair these damages and rebuild the beach just north of Indian River Inlet, the dredge was used again. With the dredge in the quiet waters of the bay, it would be possible to rebuild the ocean beach and dunes from the rear by using sand from the shallow bay areas west of the highway. It was a remarkable feat of seamanship to bring the dredge from the ocean in through the drawbridge at Indian River Inlet. Fortunately, the weather was good and there was plenty of light with the incoming tide. Even with these favorable conditions, it would not be child's play to pass the dredge through the open bridge. The bridge opening is 54 feet wide, and the dredge is 50 feet 6 inches wide. This left only 22 inches on each side for the pilot. The skipper took the dredge in stern first, so he could use the dredge cutters on the bow end as a drag anchor. At the very last minute, the tugboat cast off her guidelines and allowed the tide to carry the dredge through the bridge. The shore around Indian River Inlet was being washed away at the rate of 21 feet per year. In the section around Kitts Hummock and Hook Beach, the sea is chewing off between 4 and 5 feet each year, and up until 1954, the coast above Lewes was disappearing 3 feet every year. 100 years has seen the shoreline between Cape Henlopen and Rehoboth pushed back 610 feet. The normal course of events would find the barrier beach between Lewes and Bethany completely washed away. Then, Millsboro and Oak Orchard would be the ocean resorts, until another big storm came along. Reconstruction of the beaches on the ocean front and the filling of marshes on the immediate bay side will prevent the loss of the barrier beach and will improve the present vacation land, as well as enlarging it to accommodate more visitors. In 1958 alone, tourists spent over $6 million in the area around Rehoboth. That's many times the cost of all the repairs to the beaches from Kitts Hummock to Fenwick Island. Here is what the beach north of Indian River Inlet looked like after the dredge had refilled it. This fine, wide beach shows the work which can be accomplished by a dredge in a few days at a cost of less than 55 cents a cubic yard. This is how the storm had left it, low, narrow, and with broken dunes. A transformation such as this has affected more than just a few acres of good bathing beaches and fishing grounds. It is protecting the entire Indian River area from flooding. After experimenting on a large scale for several years, the Highway Department has proved that snow fence can be very effective in preserving sand dunes and in building new ones. The winds which blow over this area move many tons of sand every year. The Great Dune at Fort Miles has been pushed back 3,000 feet in the last 50 years. Old Cape Henlopen Lighthouse fell down because the wind moved the dunes right out from under it. These wooden fences catch the sand from the wind just like the groins catch the sand from the water. In a very short time, the fences are almost completely covered. Before this double fence was installed, the area was flat and there were no dunes whatsoever. At Savage's Ditch, a marsh was filled and a new bayside beach was built. The bay bottom is flat, shallow, and wide, providing popular and safe bathing for children. The ditch was cleaned out, public boat launching ramps were built, and easy access to Rehoboth Bay is available. The Bethany Beach area also suffered from the storm, but most of the repair work was on matters which had developed over a long period of time. This steel sheet pile groin was completely rusted through, being only a useless eyesore and a hazard to bathers. Beach fill and the repair and lengthening of the existing groins is needed here. Since this beach is unprotected from the ocean, the groins were repaired with heavy timber sheeting and extended seaward with huge stones similar to the ones used on the jetties at Indian River Inlet. Work of this sort is limited to periods of good weather and low tide. It is hard on men and even harder on machinery. The corrosive action of the salt air and water and the abrasive action of the sand soon rust and damage equipment. Fortunately, no storm struck before the work was done. Here, a bulldozer is dragging a pan of small rocks to fill the joints between the large stones. In this case, the large stones each weigh from 3 to 5 tons. Smaller stones without a timber crib around them would soon sink into the sand. In places where structures are built in tidal waters, wood must be protected against the rot caused by alternate wetting and drying. Creosoted timber was used in these groins. Here, workmen are painting the cut ends of the timber with a preservative solution. These views from the Bethany Beach boardwalk show one of the new groins. 9 groins were built here, and it is easily seen that they do not interfere with the use of the beach. This is one of the most popular bathing beaches in Delaware because it is so flat and safe. However, the beach is narrow and affords little protection for the boardwalk and properties. These groins form the structures necessary to assist in holding the beach fill planned for placement in the immediate future. Upon completion of the beach filling program, Bethany will have a wide protective beach, partially held by these new groins, which are based on the latest engineering design knowledge. Scenes showing people enjoying such beautiful public beaches are rare indeed. The United States has 3,700 miles of coastline between Canada and Mexico. Only 240 miles of this land belongs to the public. The remainder is in the hands of private developers to exploit as they like. 66% of Delaware's Atlantic coastline is in public hands, compared to 6% for the entire Atlantic and Gulf coasts. The population of Delaware is increasing more rapidly than most states, and it is wonderful that such recreation areas are available for public use, particularly when it is remembered that 1 mile of public beach provides recreation for over 5,000 persons, compared to 100 or less for privately developed beaches. But whether the beaches are in public or private ownership, the same problems of beach erosion and beach protection exist for both and cannot be separated. Recognizing this and the seriousness of the problem, the state of Delaware in 1954 entered into an agreement with the United States Army Corps of Engineers for a cooperative study of the beaches from Kitts Hummock to Fenwick Island. Based on the recommendations of the Army Engineers' 1956 report, the state legislature in 1957 appropriated $1 million to perform most of the work you have just seen, and in 1959 authorized $350,000 to complete the programs at Kitts Hummock and Bethany Beach. The maintenance of these initial projects is as important as the maintenance of a road. For an estimated $250,000 per year, the initial improvements can be maintained, yielding twice that in benefits. If the state is going to be forever responsible for the maintenance of our coastline, the citizens of the state as a whole who pay for and benefit from these improvements should assure that maintenance of these improvements continues and should assure that continued access to the beaches by the public be their rightful privilege forever.